So it's been a while, but it's time for another life update. If you go back to the last life update, that was about 1.5 years ago, I was dealing with chronic back pain. I basically couldn't turn my head. That's why I was talking like this in the last video, because I was diagnosed with neck arthritis. And what I didn't share in the last life update, because frankly it was quite embarrassing, is that for the first time in my life, I was actually, in the 30 years of being on this planet, I was actually getting, or at this time, I was in debt. So to sum it up, if you look at the last life update, I left a very comfortable coaching career. So for those that are new here, I was the CEO, founder of fitvegans.com. That was actually quite successful even when I left it. I made about 6 figures per year, only like with a desire to start my own software company. And basically like the interim goal was to, or like still is, to offer marketing services so you can kind of have enough money so in the end you can eventually build a software company. So that was the goal when I started, and then a year or so in, which is when I made the last video, I was full of pain and in debt. So it didn't quite work out that well if you look at 1 year back. Now I wouldn't say that 1.5 years ago, when I made the last life update, my life was a shit show, but it was pretty damn close. I had other things going on in my life as well, but it was definitely not going as planned. Now 1.5 years later, I'm happy to report that it's going much better. As you've probably already noticed, I can turn my head quite easily. My back pain is 99% gone. A recent MRI told me that I have no neck arthritis anymore. So I recently competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I do boxing again, and a few months back, at the beginning of this year, I was running my first marathon. So there are 3 lessons that I learned in the last 1.5 years, because I think like I learned a lot in those 1.5 years, and I want to share them with you today so you can prepare for 2026, like for the time ahead. The first lesson that I've learned, and I've read this first in the classic book Think and Grow Rich, is that there's always something you can do. I remember in that original book, some people say it's a great book, some people say it's a horrible book. I just took this one lesson from it. And that one lesson, I think that his son was diagnosed with some hearing problems, and he said there's always something you can do. Like the doctors told his son, oh, you will never hear properly. And kind of Napoleon Hill told his son, there's always something that you can do. I think they found a new doctor or a new strategy where the son actually started to hear quite a bit. Not 100%, but at least 50, 60%. So there's always something that you can do. Remember this for the next year as well. Because I remember I was thinking back to the last kind of 1.5, 2 years ago, when I was dealing with kind of chronic back pain, and chronic is like a bad word. You get scared when the doctor tells you that. And remember I was laying in bed. Like 5 p.m. It was a dark evening. I was basically laying in bed like at 5 p.m. like since hours, because I had to rest my back. And I felt like this pulling pain sensation in my kind of upper back. And I was just kind of like sad and tired about life in general. And I was not suicidal, but I remember like I was lying in bed, I was Googling when does pain become chronic? And then I've seen like 6 months. I did the math in my head and I realized, damn, like I already have this pain for 7 months. So is this how my life will be? Are the good days gone? Is this part of being Florian? Like you were really kind of athletic and active before, but now you're just forced to be bedridden for the rest of your life? And I remember going to the doctor and then getting diagnosed with kind of chronic arthritis. And the doctor told me, you have to do physiotherapy. And they gave me 10 physiotherapy sessions. And then this part buried deep in my mind came back of there's always something you can do. And I thought, okay, doctor tells me I need to do 10 physiotherapy sessions. What if I do 100? What if I do 10 times more than is required? It has to work. There has to be at least a little bit of improvement in my condition, right? So I thought, let's just go every single day. Let's just go every single day to the physiotherapy. I remember like after 2 weeks, I was asking my doctor, can I have more? Can I have more sessions? Because the 10 that he gave me, which he probably thought I would, like some people don't even use the physiotherapy session, I was like, I need more. I need more. I want to go every single day. And of course, at first the physiotherapist chuckled as well because this guy kept going every single day. But eventually, we became friends. I became the favorite client that was there every single day. And to this day, I still go there once every 2 weeks, more as to keep up the relationship. But basically, I'm the guy in the hospital that did the most physiotherapy sessions. And sure thing, I did As I told you before, I did the MRI recently and the pain is completely gone. There's no structural damage anymore. So remember, there's always something that you can do. Because I think our brain in the situation when dealing with all that stress, when dealing with all kind of even authorities telling you like, hey, listen, this is chronic, this is gonna be like for the rest of your life. You have to remember, if you really put your mind to it, and it sounds so cheesy, but if you do massive action, there's always something you can do. There's always a chance, a very good chance that you can significantly improve your life. So you probably have some shit going on in your life right now as well, but just remember that if you really put your mind to it, and if you really try to change your situation, you will realize that there's probably more about the situation than you can change, than your brain made you believe in the first place. The second lesson I've learned in the last 1.5 years, which hopefully serves you for next year as well, is that it almost always takes about 2 years to see the results of your labor. What do I mean by that? When I stopped Fit Vegans, my idea in my head was, although I should have known otherwise, that basically I stop, then the next month, 2-3 months, I have enough marketing clients, and then in about 6 months, my software starts to work. But in reality, of course, nothing like this happened. The worst case happened is that I injured myself, I could barely work, I got into debt, I could barely pay my rent. Like at one point, like I worried about, I didn't worry about going or living on the streets, but I was like, damn, this is getting really close here. And now about 2 to 3 years later, I have everything which I wanted to have, or I thought I would have 2 to 3 months later. So remember, it always takes significantly more time than you think it will take. And it will always be harder than you think it will be when you start out. And if I think back, even like to the fitness journey, I remember the first year of going to the gym, I saw 0 results. It was only after 2 years that I got a compliment. It was like, hey, listen, it's actually like we see something now. And I remember I was Googling like 1 month transformations. I thought after 1 month I should see significant improvement, but in reality it's always 2 years. So if you're looking to get in shape, it kind of is always about 2 years. If you're looking to start a business, to see the first results in your business, unless you're a natural talent, it's almost always 2 years. Let's say if you're looking to improve your relationships, like you're not really good at dating, just give it 2 years. Learn to talk to strangers. Just think about it in that time horizon. And that actually makes everything much easier if you think about it that way, because that relieves like some of the pressure. Of course, you should still try to get it as soon as possible, the results, but just give yourself a little bit more slack. Like you have time, and typically almost everything worthwhile comes to you in about 2 to 3 year increments. And to really get this kind of point across, like about 2-3 years ago, like when I stopped Fit Vegans, I already could code to a certain extent. In fact, I thought back then that I was a good coder. I wasn't, right? But now 2 to 3 years later, I built a custom AI model that fixes lazy eye in pictures. And it's the first of its kind in the world. And I thought 2-3 years ago, I was already capable of building that. I was so far off base. I thought I could code back then, I really couldn't. It took about 2 to 3 years for the skill to really solidify, so I could build something meaningful. And the good thing about this, even like with almost every skill, is you just have to learn it once. Right? Of course, you have to maintain the skill afterwards, but once you've gone through this 2 to 3 year period, you have it set. Right? You've done the hard work. You can never slack off completely, but now that kind of stays. That really was an important learning curve as well, because now after 2 or 3 years, I'm a semi-decent coder. Which to some extent is the most difficult thing to do in coding, which is to train your own AI model. And I did everything from scratch, from A to Z. I'll leave a link as well in the description where you can check it out. But I think this was a good learning as well. Almost anything that you set your mind to, it's 2 to 3 years. And third thing, the last thing which I learned and I want to get across to you like for 2026 is the importance of multidimensionality. Now, I've always practiced this to some extent even before, but I learned the importance of it more in those last 1 to 2 years of struggle, or being, like as I told my past clients, in the shit town, right? When you really like nothing is really going well. So let me explain what I mean by multidimensionality. I recently started reading Lord of the Rings. There are many different like sub-stories in the big story, but I think one of the sub-stories that very few people pay attention to is actually the sub-story of Gollum, Smeagol. like how Smeagol turned into Gollum. And for those that don't know, like Gollum or Smeagol, it's basically this hideous creature that helps like the protagonist Frodo later on as well. But basically, and then he tries to kill him later on as well. Basically, it's this hideous creature that wasn't always hideous. Smeagol was actually a semi-decent gentleman like a few years back when he first came in contact with the Ring of Power. But the Ring of Power, with its thrill of power, kind of really corrupted him and forced him to put all his life energy towards serving the ring. And I think this is a very interesting sub-story because to some extent we see this happening in our life as well. We see some people that devote their entire life to a career. They devote their entire life to the ring. And suddenly they look in the mirror and they see Gollum. You've got the ring, but you also got Gollum. And I think most skills or most things that when we become really good at something, be it the career or even the gym, there's some gym bras, that basically all they have is the gym. And then they get into a mental argument with someone, or they they're in a job interview, and basically they realize that, yeah, like my physicality is on track, but my mind has become Gollum. So because if you get good at something, it's this enticing like feedback loop that kind of spins strong and strong and turns into a tornado and then sucks your entire life into it. And before you forget, you turn into Gollum. So the reason this is important is for two reasons. I want to stress this for two reasons. The Gollum story. Number one is I think life is a multi-front war. Now, of course, life is not actual war. Don't wake up in the morning like and say, oh, war. No, it's not. But I think it's the best kind of example or analogy to get this across is that there's like multiple aspects of your life that you have to win or at least compete at to have the optimal like balance in your life. Because you cannot just focus like on your like wealth and then neglect your health or then neglect your relationships. Because if you just focus on your wealth, you might realize that you wither away physically, and that probably makes it more difficult to attract a partner. And if you don't attract your partner, then you become lonely. And that loneliness then becomes part of your character, and that will also sabotage your kind of wealth creation process. So they all connect to each other, and you cannot neglect any one of these things without having like long-term consequences on the main thing that you want to focus on. So it's like you have to think about life and constantly assess your life in this holistic way. Sometimes you have to see, hey, listen, I don't spend any time there. And if I were to die in the next few months, I would regret that. So you kind of have to assess your life and think about, okay, I should probably focus on these one aspects more, or I should focus on these aspects less. Because if I focus more on these aspects, I might turn into Gollum. And think about your life in this holistic manner. So the first reason, like I think multidimensionality is important is just for overall life quality. Because you're not just your career, you're not just your physicality, and you're not just the partner that you're with. The second thing that I've realized, like why multidimensionality is important, is the universe, or God, or nature, however you want to call it, has a way of pulling away the things that you feel the most proud of, like in your life. So just imagine like the last 2 years, like what I've gone through as a fly. What I've gone through was a very difficult thing emotionally. For the first time in my life, I got like symptoms of depression, where I was like, listen, I don't want to wake up today. Like I felt like I had nothing to look forward to. And if I think back, if I were less multidimensional, let's say being a vegan fitness coach was all there was about me. I wasn't well read, like I didn't have a girlfriend, let's imagine that, or I didn't have great friendships, then I'm not sure if I would have even been able to survive this transition. Because imagine like in this alternative universe, my entire self-worth were based upon this one like leg in the table. And now I got pulled away, table crushes. So I think it's very important, kind of dimensionality gives you multiple legs to your table. I remember I had, like even when I was dealing with back pain, even when I wasn't capable of going to the gym, I was eating healthy. And then at the end of the day I could think, at least I ate healthy today. Or looked into the mirror like, oh, at least you're still in shape. You're not as muscular as you were before because you can't even go to the gym, but at least you still have the six-pack. So basically, the more kind of legs you give your table of self-worth, the better your life quality is and the more resilient you will be. Now there's some people that say, oh, the confidence has to come from internally, and more power to you. it certainly doesn't work for me that way. And for anyone that I know, like we all have like our confidence based on multiple factors that we draw on, like either consciously or unconsciously. So I would recommend you to have as many tables or as many legs to the table of self-worth that you possibly can. The reason I want to mention that is, again, the universe can pull these legs like from you when you least expect it sometimes. So you should be able to rely on other legs of the table, right? So even, let's say you go to the gym and you feel that's the only thing that you're really good at. The best thing that you can do right now is not go to the gym as much and instead read more books or start coding or really develop yourself more in the career or date a little bit more. Let's just assume that. So can do the complete opposite of what you would be naturally attracted to. Because this way you can build multiple legs of your table. And same goes to you if you're a nerd right now. If you're a coder, very proficient coder, you shouldn't learn a new programming language. You should probably learn how to box or go to the gym. So you can build like those multiple legs of the table. And the reason I think this is right now very pressing for the next few years is because AI is coming. And AI is unpredictable. And if you're only a very good coder and this is the only thing that you have going on in your life and suddenly like a machine can do it better than you, it's going to be difficult to make that change. I'm not saying that coders will go away, like the career will evolve, but that means probably it will be easier for you to evolve with your career if you have multiple legs of your table. So what I mean by that is typically when you have more legs on your self-worth table, you're more flexible, you're more happier in general. You'll also be more interesting because people cannot put you in a box. And often, this is the very interesting aspect of this, you often even become better at your original skill because you will see connections that no one has seen before, that you didn't even realize existed. I highly suspect that if you right now, let's say you're a very proficient coder, you start going to the gym, there's a very high chance in the next few months and years you'll be seeing connections between those skills, and often your original skill will improve because there are more synergies that you originally will think of. So these are the 3 lessons that I've learned in the last 2 years. I hope they can serve you for the years coming ahead. I don't know when I will be making another video, but I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for your time and talk to you soon.